It's quite the find. Hello friends, and welcome back to Crow's Thrifty Finds. My name is Melanie. So I've really been enjoying doing these decades videos. So I want to keep going and keep making more of these. So we have gone back in time to the decade known as the 60s. How many of you remember the 60s? Maybe some of you do, maybe some of you don't. I personally was not born yet, but I do have an idea of what items that came from the 60s that sell well on eBay. So I'm going to talk about those items today and give you all things to look out for. So let's get into it. Item number one. This could be a grail of sorts, just judging by the value of these, but Peanuts character sweatshirts. I will show the example over here. These are worth a lot of money, should you find one. So this is something to be on the lookout for. This is a bolo, as we call it. So this is a very valuable sweatshirt. You just got to make sure it's vintage, make sure that you look for single stitching and things like that to make sure that it's not a replica. But yes, these vintage ones, they sell fantastic on eBay. So keep your eyes peeled for Peanuts sweatshirts. Item number two, and this is kind of a general item to be on the lookout for. I'm not going to mention a specific brand because vintage sunglasses from the 60s are great sellers on eBay. People want that vintage look even to this day. As you all know, as far as trends go, what's old is new, and sunglasses are no exception to this. So look for 60s sunglasses, and if you find any, you're probably going to make some good money on them. Definitely good to just, take pictures and check Google Lens and make sure, but many sunglasses from the 60s are desirable today. Item number three. This is something I actually just stumbled upon for the very first time recently, and I've been looking for a long time, but they're not the easiest thing to find. And this is Red Lines Hot Wheels. So these are Hot Wheels. I believe the majority of them are die-cast metal. But what makes them red lines is there is a red circle along the tires. And these were made in the earlier years of Hot Wheels vehicles. And these are very well made cars. It's sometimes hard to find them with good condition on as far as the paint goes. Like the one that I found was not super rare or valuable. There's a lot of guides online to show you, which ones to look out for that are the most valuable. There's charts that show like rare and common. But in general, there's quite a few red lines that sell for big money. So definitely when you're digging through those buckets of cars at a garage sale, you want to look for those red lines on the tires because those can definitely be big money. So they're worth looking up for sure. Next item. I think most people realize that this item is collectible, but in my mind, I feel like the value of some of them have gone down over the years. They're not quite as collectible as they used to be, and that's Pez dispensers. However, when it comes to valuable Pez dispensers, we're looking at Pez from the 60s. There are some very valuable Pez dispensers from the 60s. So if you see old Pez dispensers, definitely look it up. If it's, one of these very old ones, you could get lucky and sell it for a lot of money. So newer Pez, will probably have to be a special theme, but yeah, vintage Pez, there's still definitely a market for that. Next item from the 60s is vintage chess sets. I actually was fortunate enough to purchase a vintage chess set from the 60s a few years back. And I remember I did very well. I don't remember exactly what I sold it for, but it was a really nice one. I believe the pieces were marble. But yeah, it sold it sold for really good money. So chess sets from the 60s are worth looking up. And, you know, if you see any vintage chess sets in general, you know, even newer than the 60s, that's probably worth a Google Lens snap as well, because there's a lot of value in certain types of chess sets. So while there's chess sets from the 60s that are valuable, don't limit yourself, I guess is what I'm saying, to that, because there's many chess fanatics out there and they can go into, you know, unbelievably high price ranges if you're fortunate enough to find, you know, a quality rare enough one. Next, another kind of just general thing to search for, vintage Christmas items from the 60s. There's a lot of different Christmas items that you find. If you just do a completed listings search on eBay for Christmas 60s, you will see a variety of items. I know there's these metal Christmas trees that are really collectible, and a lot of people want to find them. There's also that ceramic Christmas tree with the little bulbs, you might remember. So yeah, there's all kinds of really good Christmas items. And believe it or not, Christmas sells year round on eBay. Granted, it's going to sell better at the last quarter of the year, but I wouldn't hesitate to list Christmas now. If you find something really awesome, somebody very likely will buy it at full price if it's rare and collectible enough. And a lot of this Christmas stuff from the 60s is very desirable. So be on the lookout in your local thrift store for vintage Christmas items from the 60s. Caesar has a lot to say today, in case you couldn't tell. And apparently my light just went off, so I apologize for the changes. My camera light has been kind of on the fritz, and it's on the fritz right now. So apologies. Mood lighting, right? So anyway, so we are on to the next item, which is vintage fabric from the 60s. People really like those kind of hippie prints, flowers, you know, those bold colors, that kind of fabric people still want to do projects with. And of course, as the years go by, that type of fabric becomes more and more difficult to get your hands on, but the desire for the fabric is still there. Mid-century modern, you know, they want that stuff. So be on the lookout for vintage fabric from the 60s. Again, it has kind of a bold look to it. I hesitate to say it's, you know, totally obvious, but I think, you know, most people could probably pinpoint something, you know, from that time period. But yeah, lots of flowers and bold colors is my best advice to give to you all. Next item from the 60s, transistor radios. I always think of that song Brown Eyed Girl mentioning the transistor radios. I can't think of anything else when I hear that. I just hear to myself, transistor radio. Anyway, but yes, transistor radios, they sell in all kinds of price ranges on eBay, but you can definitely sell, you know, the more rare ones for hundreds. But, you know, you could sell even a more common, not as fancy model, you know, $40, $50. So really, if it's something you find for cheap in a thrift store, there's a good chance that it's worth picking up. Again, do your research, make sure that it's something that's for sure valuable. But I'd say for the most part, a lot of transistor radios are valuable and people want to purchase them. They're collectible. People like to collect old radios. It's just kind of one of those things. Next item, lava lamps. I love lava lamps personally. They kind of had a resurgence in the 90s, and I definitely had a lava lamp. I remember it was blue with purple lava and a silver base, and I wish I still had it. I don't know what happened to it. Maybe it got ruined in storage or something and it overheated, you know, when I'd go home for the summer in college. I don't know what happened to it, but I don't have it anymore. But I guess that's neither here nor there. But the point of this, lava lamps from the 60s, when they first came out, These are very valuable. And if you look on eBay, there are some really, really cool ones. And I was kind of tempted to buy them. And it's amazing that they've survived over the years, just, being how they are. But there's some, that have been in controlled temperatures and they've survived, and, you just replace the bulbs and they're good to go. So look out for lava lamps that have a vintage look. You may not know exactly how old the lava lamp is by looking at it, but, examining for brand, examine those plugs. If they have those 2-prong plugs, that's definitely a sign of an older lava lamp. So, be on the lookout for ones with that older plug. That's kind of helpful. But yeah, that concludes the list. I thank you all for watching. And I hope to have a really exciting video for next week. I'm not going to spoil it just yet, but I'm taking a little trip out of state this weekend, little family vacation, and I'm going to take some cool videos when I'm there, but I will not spoil it just yet. But there's going to be some hopefully some good thrifting videos coming up, but I'm not totally spoiling it by saying that. So I'll have to leave you guessing on that, what's actually happening. But until then, this is Melanie with Crow's Thrifty Finds. I'll see you next week.